Let's stop calling it change resistance. Mistaking confusion for resistance is solving the wrong problem, by Leslie Rahansi. People just don't like change. I have heard that sentence hundreds of times over the years, usually from a frustrated leader trying to explain why an important initiative isn't gaining traction. I don't buy it. People change all the time. We change jobs, get married, become parents, move across the country, learn new technologies, adapt to reorganizations, new bosses, new colleagues, and entirely new careers. If humans were naturally resistant to change, civilization would have ground to a halt somewhere around the invention of indoor plumbing. So perhaps we've been diagnosing the wrong problem all along. In my experience, people aren't nearly as resistant to change as leaders imagine, but they are resistant to confusion, and that's a big difference. Imagine you're standing in an airport, waiting to board a flight. The departure board suddenly flashes, "Gate changed." No problem. You gather your things and head to the new gate. Now imagine the board starts changing every few minutes. Gate 18, Gate 26, back to Gate 18, flight delayed, actually on time. Please wait for further announcements. No explanation, no updates, no one seems to know what's happening. You haven't become resistant to flying, you've become exhausted by trying to make sense of conflicting information, and that's what organizational change often feels like. One executive I coached was convinced her leadership team was pushing back on a major transformation. They just won't get on board, she told me. As we unpacked what was happening, a different picture emerged. Different executives were communicating different priorities. Success hadn't been clearly defined. As a result, some teams had already started changing their processes, while others had been told to wait. Timelines shifted weekly. Nobody knew which decisions had actually been made and which were still under discussion. Her team wasn't resisting the future, as she thought. They were just trying to survive the present. That distinction completely changed the leadership response. If we assume people hate change, we tend to push harder. We communicate more frequently. Another town hall with another corporate slide deck. We repeat the vision one more time, hoping it'll resonate, and that enthusiasm will eventually take over. Sometimes the problem isn't a lack of communication, it's a lack of clarity. Cognitive psychology and neuroscience researchers have long recognized that uncertainty increases cognitive load. When we can't confidently predict what's happening around us, our brains naturally direct more attention to monitoring for risk and filling in the gaps. That leaves us with less mental capacity for creativity, problem solving, collaboration, and learning. When information is missing, we rarely leave the blanks empty. Our brains naturally want to connect all the bits and pieces of data that we do have by filling in the story with imagined information. It's a normal human response, and we rarely get it right. I guess my role isn't important anymore. They've probably already made the decision. I'd better wait before I commit. They're changing direction again. Sound familiar? As an executive coach, I spend a surprising amount of time helping leaders separate facts from the stories they've unconsciously constructed. Organizations do exactly the same thing. Confusion is a story factory. The irony is that leaders often perceive these behaviors as evidence that people are resistant or hesitant. People are asking lots of questions, waiting, and not taking initiative. From the leader's perspective, it looks like reluctance. But from the employee's perspective, it feels more like self-protection. If we're striving to eliminate uncertainty, we're on a fool's errand. It just isn't possible. Markets shift, customers evolve, governments turn over, technology advances, and tactical plans evolve. What if instead we focused on eliminating unnecessary confusion? How? By making decisions visible, clearly explaining what is known, what remains uncertain, and when more information will be available, while carefully distinguishing between firm decisions and emerging possibilities. And by transparently acknowledging the ambiguity rather than masking it with false certainty. And by recognizing that clarity is not achieved through a single announcement, but cultivated through an ongoing, intentional leadership practice. In coaching conversations, when I hear a leader say, "My team is resisting change," I almost always become curious about something else. I wonder what the team might be confused about. And when I ask that question, it usually leads us somewhere much more useful. Because once confusion is reduced, something remarkable often happens. The resistance starts dissipating on its own. Perhaps people were never resisting the change. Perhaps they were just trying to find stability as the ground moves under them before taking the next step. And that is a very human thing to do. Your coaching challenge. Choose a current change your team is navigating and set aside 20 minutes to work through this exercise. 1. Write down the change in one clear sentence. 2. List the key areas where confusion might exist. For example, priorities, roles, timelines, decision-making, success measures. 3. For each area, ask yourself, what have I explicitly communicated? What might still be unclear or inconsistent? And where could people be filling in the gaps with their own assumptions? 4. Identify 1 or 2 specific actions you can take this week to reduce that confusion, such as clarifying a decision, aligning messages with your leadership team peers, or naming what is still unknown. 5. Check in with your team and ask them directly what feels unclear right now. Listen without correcting or defending. 6. Reflect on what shifted when you focused on increasing clarity. If you're curious about creating greater clarity, alignment, and confidence in your leadership team, I'd love to explore it with you. Reach out for a complimentary executive coaching conversation at leslierohansi.com. Have a smooth day.